So yes, starting on Friday, we will be in the classroom. There will also be, maybe not immediately Friday, but certainly by Monday or whatever, we do have to start having a seating chart. Okay? That's a long story. Anyway, so we are going to have some new rules, but that's okay. We're working on getting everything to be the best learning environment for everybody. All right, so we're going to go over the, you have a test on Friday. You knew that already. And this quiz that you took has a lot of the same sort of material. Now, not everything on the test is multiple choice like this, although some of it is. But like, it's the same problem, except instead of, you just picked from a list as to which one was the inverse, well, now you got to find the inverse. Or the other way around, or whatever. And so, or whatever. But anyway, it's very similar problems there. All right, so anyway, let's go through the quiz and see how everybody did. If you're wondering what's going on here, I'm not letting you see anybody's names or anything like that. These are the percents, though, that people got, so how many percent got each one of these questions right. So like whatever question 6 was, clearly we have a problem. Whatever question 7 was, we have a big problem. 25% who got it right. On the other hand, like, number 10, 87% of the people got it right. I'm pretty happy about that. So this is helping us as a group know what to review, but it's also helping each person know what they should be reviewing. Okay? All right, so we started off almost 80% on the first question. That sounds pretty encouraging. Let's go back over here to the questions and view. All right. Find the slope of the line that passed through these points. Well, that shouldn't have been just too difficult of a question, which explains why like nearly 80% of the people got it right. Remember, the slope of the line was, a good way to think about slope is that it's just the rise over the run. And so it is how much we went up as we went forward. So it's the change in the y over the change in the x, another way to write it right there. Okay, so how much did we change in y? We went from 0 to 6, we increased by 6, and as we went down the x-axis, we went from 1 to 8. So we gained 6, and we rose 6 while we went down the axis 7. So the right answer should be 6/7. When I looked through the answers that were wrong, it looked like a couple people just had it upside down. I don't think there were any other, I don't want to pull that up right this second here, but it didn't look like anybody had chosen some of the kind of crappier answers over here. A few people had the change in x over the change in y. Okay, that's a fixable problem, and that's one more question you get right on the test, right? So I'm not too stressed about that set of problems. All right, now let's take a look real quick at the results for question 2. Question 2, even more, almost 90% of the people knew what to do about question 2. Which of these equations was written in slope-intercept form? Now, as such questions go, there's sort of a whole hierarchy to how we test these sorts of things. That's more of an identification problem, which isn't very high on the list of the learning, but it is the kind of thing we still have to check. So which one is written in slope-intercept form? You want it to have a form that looks like y equals mx plus b, where there is a slope and there is an intercept. Okay. So which of these guys looks most like that? I like number 1. It's a perfectly good line. It's probably even a perfectly good function, but that is not in slope-intercept form. Your book actually used the word standard form for that, which doesn't make me hugely happy. This one isn't even a line. This is an interesting one, but that's not in slope-intercept form. Does anybody remember what that third one is called? Point slope form, exactly. And the last one is then the right answer there as to which one was the slope-intercept form. All right, that's cool. All right, use this graph to answer the next 2 questions. How did the next 2 questions go? Man, 95 and then 62. Okay. All right, well, let's take a look at that. Is the graph up there an example of a function? Yes. Yes. Why is it, Latavia, an example of a function? It's what? It's like a curvy line, which is good, or it could be straight or whatever. Yeah? It passes the vertical line test. That is the most important thing to determine whether something is or is not a function, is it needs to pass the vertical line test. That means no matter where you draw a vertical line on it, you cross the function no more than once. It can be 0, that's okay, but it can't be more than once. So yes, that's good. Okay, great. Now, Oh, the second one though has some trickier vocabulary. Is this function one? Is the function shown above 1 to 1? No. What's wrong with it? Yeah, Jacob.
Does it pass the horizontal line?
That's right. The function is 1 to 1 is another way of saying the function passes the horizontal line test. In other words, where we draw a horizontal line through the function and it crosses no more than once.
Oh my gosh, I got that wrong.
Oh no, Ashton, I'm so sorry. Well, you know what? The good news is you'll get it right on the test now, right? Oh no, it's going to be alright. So here's the deal. It's okay to cross 0 times, but it's not okay to cross more than once. So this one does not pass. Hey, real quick. Why do we give a damn? Why do we care if the function is 1 to 1? It has an inverse then. And there's all kinds of things we're going to be able to do later about inverse functions. But we have to know if it will have one or not. Yeah, right.
So if it doesn't pass the horizontal line test, then it doesn't have
An inverse. Then it doesn't have an inverse. That's right. Beautiful. All right. Number 5. Let's take a look here. Number 5. 92% got the number 5 right. That's really not so surprising because it was just a plugging in a number thing. Evaluate f of 3 for the following function. All that means is you plugged in the number 3 into the function and, okay, 3 minus 2 is 1. Absolute value of 1 is just 1 plus 3 is 4. Okay? Shouldn't be too big of a deal. First, I think that one was a little on the easy side. Okay? I didn't write these questions from nothing. I pulled them out of some teacher's edition or something like that. Personally, I would say on the great scheme of things, I would have pulled a harder question probably, but you know, whatever. I was just pulling the 10 questions off the sample test or whatever. Okay. Use this graph to answer the next question. That's actually the same graph, by the way. Oh, I bet this one was a struggle. Number 6, 33%. All right. In other words, guessing, right?
I just didn't try.
It's a guess. There's 3 choices. All right. Even, odd, or neither.
I said odd.
It is odd. All right. How do we know? How do we know? Yes. It's symmetric with respect to the origin is the definition in the book. That means that, like, if you took it and you turned it 180 degrees around the origin, it reflects or whatever. Right? You know, this thing fits right here. I have a hard time picturing that.
So,
Even. What would have been different if it was even?
They would both be positive. Or they would both end the same way.
It would be reflecting across the y-axis, right? It would do something like this, where you don't, well, that's not very well drawn, but you know what I'm saying? Like they flip this way. Even is that way.
Yes.
And of course, plenty of functions aren't either even or odd. They're not like numbers where they have to be one or the other. They're either even or they're odd. This one, they could have been neither. Okay. Do I really? This whole even and odd thing.
Yes.
Is not the, Brendan, it's not the,
Yes.
if I were making a list of the top 10 things we needed to know, this isn't in there.
Oh.
But here's the deal. It will be darn handy to be able to know things like words like that to describe graphs. And you might have noticed that this textbook has the word graphing approach or something in its title.
Yes.
The book loves this damn even and odd thing. Okay, in the great scheme of things in your math history, in your education, when you're off in college and you're taking some math class, they're not going to care that much about even and odd. Okay, but this book drops this word like it's impressing you. You know, like a little mic drop when it mentions that tangent functions are odd. Like you're supposed to be impressed by how, yeah, baby. No. So, we got to know it because it's going to be a useful way to describe things moving forward in the book, even if it isn't exactly the biggest deal in the world. All right, number 7. Use this graph to answer the following question. How did number 7 go?
25.
25%. All right. Hey, that's why we're doing this, is to learn what people know and what they don't. Okay, so number 7. For the graph shown above, which of the following is a domain over which the function is decreasing?
Option A.
Hold on.
Option D.
Hold on. It isn't Aaron's shouting out answers. I got better questions.
number 2.
Hold on. What do we mean by a domain?
Domain is a range of X.
Yes, that's hard to do it because you want to say it's a range of, but range is the opposite thing, right? Think of it as like a span or interval, okay? All right, so it's a span of values of x where something's happening. In this case, over which the function is decreasing. So we are talking about, here, there's two spots even nicely labeled right there. Clearly, this is the span, this is the domain over which the function is decreasing. Okay, so x belongs to some domain here. Is that from 0 to infinity? No. Is it from negative infinity to negative 1.333? No. Is it from 1.185 to 0? No, because those are the y's. That is this part. X is from negative 133 to 0? Yes. Oh. Okay, so what did we learn here that was important? First off, we had to be careful about this word domain.
I don't like that.
Did you say I don't like math?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, because that's what we have. Alright, so let's check this out then. So, what did we learn? The domain is a range. See, I just did it myself, Ashley. It's a span. It's an interval over which x is something. Here it is. X is this is the range of, this is the span, the interval of x's, the domain of x's, over which that function is decreasing. And we have to be careful to pick value. I mean, we need to make sure we're talking about the x's. These were the y's. We mean the x's. So from negative 1.333 to 0. All right. That wasn't so good.
I did that one. I got it right.
Wow, way to rub it in.
I did too, though.
If I had
Hey, Ashley, I got it.
Brendan, if I had stickers, you'd get one.
Thank you.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't have to give out too many stickers since it was only 25% of that question. Come on.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'm one of them.
So I'm
Are you really, Riley?
Everybody in this class.
Ryan, rather.
I was one of them too. In spirit.
Use this graph to answer the next two questions. Now, during the quiz, which of the following would be the inverse of red, blah, blah, blah. But before we get there, did you hear Ashton come up and ask a question?
No.
Ashton came up and he asked a question. He said, well, wait a minute. I can't really see. If I'm trying to put some vertical line test in here, for example, I mean, is it going to pass through here? Okay? I'm not trying to trick you with little subtleties like that. Okay? If it's not going to pass, it's going to be gratuitous that it's not passing. Right? Like, I mean, if you weren't going to, let's say the question then, does it pass the vertical line test? Oh, I could see where Ashton might have been a little stressed about that purple one right there. Or that green one right there as to whether they would pass or not. Alright. I have learned a lesson, Latavian. Don't make subtle looking graphs, okay? In the future, it would be more like, okay, vertical line test. Okay? Does that pass the vertical line test?
Yes.
Clearly no.
So the question.
I'll be careful on the test. Yeah, Brian.
So do the purple and green ones pass?
Yeah, they do. They're actually graphs of like x cubed or something like that.
If it's far enough, you can see that.
So wait a minute, they would be. So which of these functions is the inverse of the red function? How are we going to know, first of all? So what slope?
You like where they like you put the 45-degree thing.
You put the inverse will look like it reflected over that 45-degree angle. Yeah.
I also kind of use like with the y-intercept and the red
really
one.
doesn't actually.
Yeah? Becomes the x-intercept of the other one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too. Alright, so if we were putting this in right here, that would be our 45-degree angle. Well, which one is reflected across the 45 of the red one?
Green.
Green. Okay? So which of the functions is the inverse of the red one? Just graphically, we would say that it must be the green one in this case. If, okay, a draft of the test already exists. And I think the draft of the test, I'll have to double check, but I think I switched it so that it's like, there is a very similar question on there, and I think like one's black, one's dotted, one's dashed, and something else. Here's the deal. If anybody has any kind of vision issues like color blindness or anything like that, just let me know, okay? Nobody has a 501 or what a 504 plan or whatever that said that they've got like color and vision issues. But if any, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, if you have document, you have a 401k. Do you really? Awesome. Ashton's going to be living large when he's retired.
$28 so far.
Actually, we'll be living large in a small way at that point in the future. All right. So, the function that is the inverse of the red one in this case is the green one. I like, this is a nice graph, but whatever. Looking back at the diagram shown in question 8, which of these functions does not pass a horizontal line test?
Green.
I picked trick question.
I did too.
You picked trick question. I think this one, I think they all pass a horizontal line test. Yeah, Natalie.
If they all have inverses, then they all have to pass.
Oh my gosh, she's right. They have inverses, so they must pass. So the correct answer there was trick question. They all pass. Is that what I have here? Hold on. Was that question 9?
Yeah.
9, yeah. All right, so that was the right answer. Yep. And 75% of you took it, which is awesome. All right, and then the final question, question 10. Find the inverse of the following function. Okay, there are definitely questions on the test that look like this. Now, I don't know, I don't remember, because like I said, I wrote the draft of this test. Gentlemen.
We're just celebrating because we're doing so good so far. I have 9 out of 9.
Thank you. I'm happy for you.
I'm happy for you.
Debatable.
So,
Stop trying to press things.
I can't tell you for sure, because like I said, I wrote this test, the draft of it like a week or 2 ago already. So I have to fix it today after our session here and print it and stuff like that. I can't remember whether the actual problem is find the inverse, and you actually have to actually do it, using that set of steps that was in section 1.6. You know, we'll do it in just a second. Or whether it is something like this where which one is it or whatever. I can think of a number of ways I could ask you this. But here's the deal. Let's actually do this the way the book would tell us. Where the problem was saying x squared plus 3 is our function. And it actually says let's do this the hard way and actually find the inverse of this. The book said get rid of this f of x thing and call it y. Okay, because that f of x thing, it's just going to be confusing as to how it's written when we get farther. Then it said swap the x and the y. Where there's an x, put a y. Where there's a y, they put an x. Now, several people have come and talked to me and said that that makes them sad. As well they should. Because here's the deal. That is not fair. That is not something you learn in algebra. Because it's not. Okay? I am not saying that those two, this is not equal to this thing. We broke some rules here. But this is part of how you find the inverse. Okay? It's the steps of you. It is not like a fair algebra move in the sense of like these equations are still equal to each other or something like that, like you would have done in algebra. So I recognize, sorry, Latavian, that that's a little bit spooky. But then we can solve for that y. And then it said, now get rid of, no, we don't need that y anymore, just call it f inverse. So we need the answer here that looks like that. And it happens to be this one right here. Now, on a very similar problem in your book, or a similar example in your book, they would have proceeded to get kind of fussy. And they would have said, strictly speaking, that's only true for, because you know, there's a whole business of we can't let this be negative, right? Because you can't have the square root of the negative number. But there was no reason why it couldn't be a negative up here. So they would have started having to say, well, strictly speaking, it's only true for x greater than 3. And then they would have had to do the same thing over here. Okay, no. Life is short and so am I.
Roast himself.
The business of like figuring out the domains of the original function and the domains of the inverse of it, when there's all this crap of square roots, and remember there were even some worse ones in your book that had like cube roots?
Yeah,
There was even a fifth root or something like that?
Yeah.
We are not going that direction on the test.
What?
Okay? I'm not going to like be, oh, I'm sorry, you only got this far. Like, let's say the problem wasn't multiple choice. Let's say the actual problem had just been this top part right here, and then there's a big blank piece of paper. And you got to do what I just did right there. Alright? I'm not going to be taking off if you didn't catch that over the domain x belong, another way to write that would be x belongs to the range from 3 to infinity, kind of. No, I don't care. No, I do care. I just don't care on this test. Okay, there's plenty of things to test you on the test. We don't need that. Okay? So, that won't be on the test. Alright. Now, just out of curiosity, how did the quiz go? Pop quiz.
It wasn't too bad.
What was the national average?
That's what I'm doing right now.
Why can't I see my name?
Oh no, I can see some names. Crap.
Oh my gosh, I'm kidding.
Average was a 70. That isn't the end of the world.
It was 79, okay.
Why? What did I get?
I'm not gonna put individual grades up there just yet.
When are they going into the grade books so I can see?
Get that this morning. Get this morning. You'll be up there.
Can you just?
If I got through this class.
I just want to see what I got.
I really just want to see if I got
I mean, I don't care if other people see my grade because I'm proud of my big grade.
Hold on.
I'm proud of my heritage.
Put the student ID code so we'll know.
Yeah.
No, I don't have those.
That takes too long.
Mine's the right one and I live 5.
How about we go to school?
How about we go to Starbucks? This is a weird day in this class.
Can we?
I'm feeling like a seating chart will do us good. Something went wrong. Hold on.
Are all the tests right up the test?
Ryan, did you submit it twice?
I got a good man.
Look at me, inflation.
I must have done something wrong. I did something. I'll have to double check. What'd you say, Nellie?
Are those rechargeable batteries?
Yes. Yep. I'm just recharging so that I can do the other class later. Okay, so I must have done something wrong on grading the individuals because several people have zeros, and I know that nobody got a 0 on the quiz. So I must have the actual business of how I'm grading. All right. So I won't do, actually. I'll put it on RDS when I get it fixed. You know, like an hour or so after class. All right. Yeah, I don't think.
That was the last question, right?
Yes, that was the last question.
I got
Yep.
I think I got like a D.
That's awesome. Well, the class average was a 70, which is not bad, but on the other hand, we definitely want to do better than that on the test, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right. All right, first things first about the test, because it will be on Friday. There are no questions on the test that involve you needing a device. There's no Desmos or anything else going on in there. That doesn't mean there aren't graphs. Oh Lord, there are graphs. But you can't have that in there. And so, yes, so you can't, so you don't need to have a device with you or anything like that, okay? Here's the deal. Yes, Luis.
You just want to come during finite to take it.
You need to take it during finite. Yes, that makes sense. Sorry, I'm thinking through what did you mean by that. Now I understand. Yes, it's Friday. It's Friday and Luis comes early. That's right, because you got criminology.
Wait, why do you only come once a week? That sounds difficult.
What, his class?
No, that he comes to math once a week.
He'll be good. No, it's only on the Fridays. The Fridays that we have this class, he also has at the same time criminology. Isn't that right? Yeah. And it's okay. We can make that work.
I used to have this class.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yes. All right. Also, you may have heard through the... What is that? A homework. I'll get it from you. Don't worry.
I don't think I did it.
You guys had a homework set for today, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at me like
I think you did. Yeah.
Yeah, you emailed it to us.
Okay.
Yeah, because you forgot to give it to us in class. It's like, well.
Yeah, that's right, because I was just way too overwhelmed. All right, so here's the deal. Another thing. You may have heard a rumor that last year we did test in the Precalculus class open book. Okay, here's the deal.
Also heard
That probably will be the case when we get to different material that involves looking things up in the back of the book. You know, have you noticed all this stuff back here? There's like all these kind of tables and these things back here. And also at the front of the book, there's these tables and so on. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you get kind of used to using that are part of it. And there's also going to be like more complicated things that you need to look up in tables and stuff like that. This is not one of those tests, okay? I don't think having the book open would be helpful. That being said, we learned today that there are things that, boy, if you had the book in front of you, you'd probably do better. Who would have gotten the question right if they had been able to look up what? I know that trick too. If you had the book open, you would have gotten the question right about even and odd.
Me.
That's right. Right. 2/3 of you got it wrong, and you shouldn't have gotten it wrong. You wouldn't have gotten it wrong if you had the book. Okay, but the good news is we've now identified that. Learn that between now and Friday. Okay? There's those set of steps for finding the inverse function. That was a frequently missed question. Okay? I'm not going to let you have the book open. You're going to have to know those steps. Yeah?
Will it be multiple choice?
No, it's not entirely multiple choice, although part of it is multiple choice.
Is it
Yes, it is approximately in the order. And what is your best friend on preparing for the test? It is that practice test in the back of the chapter on page, what is it, 83 or something like that? 87? Yes, Natalie.
Oh, sorry. But on the practice test, some of the stuff is over.
Yes, not everything is perfect. Let me take a look real quick. It is on page 86. And do you happen to remember any specific examples? Here's the deal. If you take a look at that practice test, it looks a whole lot like what we just did on the pop quiz, right? I mean, they're slightly different. Like I did it as a multiple choice, whereas they were doing it as a solve or something like that. But that's not a coincidence. The actual test looks a lot like this.
How much is a lot?
I mean, they're basically the same material. Okay? Some of the problems are just the same problem with different numbers in them. Some of the problems are, well, okay, before they said, show that those two functions are inverses of each other, whereas now I'm going to say, how do you know which ones are inverses of each other? But it's the same information I'm getting out of you. Yeah, if you got a question, yeah, show me, Natalie, which one you were thinking of.
Okay, well, I kind of gave up after number 5.
Okay.
Because 5 through 12 looked really confusing.
5 through 12 on the practice test, on page 86? All right, 5 I would agree is not on the test. That has to do with the idea, yeah, these fighting domains like that. Okay, number 6 on there is a story problem. And we certainly had some examples of story problems, but I don't think there's any story problems on the test. Okay? I will send you guys a warning if I'm wrong about that. But I don't think, like number 6 says it's got a story problem where you got to get it set up in the form. I don't think we need that. 7 and 8 were even and odd type function problems.
It says to do them algebraically though.
Yes. Good question. Okay, so Natalie has an excellent question. It says, determine algebraically. Now, we had problems on this quiz that said, this function right here, is that even or odd?
That's odd.
That is odd, absolutely. Now, there is an algebraic way to test that as well. It is, what is odd functions are what? F of x equals negative f of negative x or something like that. And it's even if f of, that's odd, and f of x equals f of negative x if it's even. Is that right? I think that's the way it is. Here's the deal. Those algebraic tests, you did a little bit of it in the homework. As far as I'm concerned, you've already shown me you know how to do that, and we can move on. Okay? So, I would say that you don't need to be able to think about proving that algebraically for that even and odd thing. It ain't that important to me. Yeah.
So exactly how many questions are going to be on
Oh! Ashton, I think it's 20 something. I think in the current draft it's 20.
Okay,
Yeah.
what's the largest portion of it? Well, I'm just...
I don't know.
Okay.
Probably
Probably
F of G.
F and G's on there.
Fog.
There wasn't at Fog stuff. Hey, by the way, there wasn't any Fog stuff on that pop quiz, was there? But it will be on the test. Let's do a Fog thing. F of x equals x squared. G of x is x cubed. What is f of g of x? Okay, we take this g of x thing, because it's the one on the right, and we just put it in for the x. So it is x cubed squared,
X penta.
which I believe is x to the 6th power. Okay, I wouldn't ask that. That was kind of a stupid one in terms of the exponents thing. Let's do one that would be a little bit more just algebra. How about f of x equals x plus 1, g of x is x squared. We take the g of x to get f of g of x. We would just put this g of x thing in here for x right here. And it would be x squared plus 1. For what it's worth, what would g of f be?
G of F?
We would take the f and put it in for there. We would have x plus 1 squared.
So would you have to follow that out?
No.
Thank you.
In general,
So it's not X squared.
something like that would be fine. Okay? You don't need to play the algebra game.
Oh no, I don't like that.
I know you don't.
That's why you don't have to play it.
Okay, next. I can think of another thing that didn't show up on the pop quiz. Function shifts.
Oh, I don't understand stretching.
What?
I don't understand like the stretching part.
Stretching and shifting. I think the shifting people did fine.
I understand stretching. I
Okay.
don't understand stretching.
You guys know what we're talking about? Yes. All right. So if you started off with some parent function like x squared, if you wanted to stretch it, you multiply it by, to vertically stretch it, we'll call it g of x, you multiply it by a number bigger than 1, like 3x squared. So if this was your original function f of x, to stretch it vertically, you multiply it by a number bigger than 1. To stretch it horizontally, you stretch it by a number, you multiply it by a number less than 1. Stretching horizontally is multiplying by a number less than 1. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on your feet there. Stretching vertically is to multiply it by a number bigger than 1. Okay? Alright, that's a good one. Hey, what if you wanted to flip it over the x-axis? How do you do that?
Inverse.
Multiply it by a negative. Here, let's say j of x is negative x squared. Multiply it by negative 1. You get that. Okay? Reflections were the hardest one. I don't know that that actually made it to the test or not. What if we wanted to shift it to upward? What if I wanted it to be this? How do you shift up?
That's the y you said. Right?
It's still going to be x squared, but then we add something.
You add something to your,
We add this way.
yes.
What if we want to shift it off to the right?
Don't you like
Oh, no.
First you subtract something, then you do it. Alright. Make sure you know those. I don't know how to answer Ashton's question about what's the most on the test. What it is we wrote questions. We have written questions.
I like that.
And then I just gave a certain number of points to each question. Like that's a 2-point question, that's a 5-point question, whatever, based on how hard it was, or how much work it was, how much work it was, more than how hard it was. And then I just added the points. So like the test is maybe, out of 43, kind of like the homework, right? I don't worry about how many points it adds up to, and then I just change it to a percent. So the test might be out of 43, and then I do the math, and you got an 86% or something. Ashton.
Okay, speaking about grading,
Yes.
how many total points is the test going to be worth?
See, by the time I have these grades recorded, I'm going to have to actually have the grade book set up right?
Yeah.
Yes, because we want to make sure the test is worth. The tests, altogether, tests I believe are worth half of the class, and altogether everything else is worth half the class.
So quizzes are the same as homework grades?
A homework quizzes count as a homework, so they aren't worth a lot of points.
That's upsetting.
I'm sorry, but exit quizzes are going to be counting as less. I mean, like maybe exit quizzes will be worth 15%, homework's counting 35%, or something like that. I'm not quite entirely sure what proportions I'll use, and I might change my mind along the way. Okay? But then the test will be totally worth 50%, which will be scary. Here's the deal. There's nothing worse than when you have one grade in a category. Right? Because once you have one grade in the test column, that is the test average, right? Let's say you get an 80% on this test on Friday, that means that now you have, half of your grade comes from that 80%, which you might be thrilled about or you might be horrified by, depending on, where you want to get your grade, right? If you, it's always scary when there's 1 in that column, right? Like 1 test or 1 whatever. But anyway, yeah, I do have to go through the RDS tutorials to make sure I have that all set up right so that things are worth the right amount. All right. Yes. Because, yeah, that's very scary, and RDS changed over the summer. So, let's see, what else do we need to know? If someone writes to me to remind me, I'll make it Ashton's job. What? To remind me. I'll even tell you how much of the test is from each section. Like, 10% of the test comes from 1.1, 20% of the points come from 1.2, 10% comes from 1.3. I'll tell you that. I got no problem. I don't know what you're going to do with that information. Well, if your quiz stuff didn't go so hot on stuff from section 1.4, and then you find out 1.4 is a quarter of the test, you might, that might change how you prepare.
Yes.
I don't know. All right. Make sense? Make sense?
Yes.
Fantastic.
No problem.
Jacob, how's this test going to go?
It's gonna go alright.
How much time are you going to spend studying for this test?
3 hours a night.
Ashley, can I count on that?
No, I'm thinking like 30 minutes.
That won't be enough.
Best I can do is an hour.
Best I can do is my homework.
I'll make you an offer you
And I
can't
get 13
refuse.
What did you say?
I said I'll make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, well, I'm going to refuse the 30 minutes.
What do you
Hey,
recommend?
Mr. Strong.
It should take longer to prepare for this test than to get a pizza delivered.
Okay.
Yes.
Where do you want?
So,
So, is the test going to be more elaborate than this one that we just took?
Well, I would say
Will it be
that
similar?
Ryan has an excellent question. Is the test more elaborate than what we saw in this quiz? I would say that the quiz didn't cover all the material, right? We talked about like the function transforms and stuff like that. That wasn't on the pop quiz. Or the FOG and the FOG. Those things are on there.
Okay.
Yeah. Are the problems harder or are they more steps or something? I'm not sure I would say they are.
And so if we did good on this quiz, are we guaranteed to do okay on the test?
I think, Ryan, it means you don't need to study at all. I guarantee you will get no. No, it doesn't work that way. This is helping you know what materials you were. Ryan,
So is it similar? That's all I'm asking.
it's similar. There's more material, but yeah, yeah. I don't know. I'm scared, Ryan.
Yeah, I am too.
Mr. Strong.
Yes.
If the class gets above a 70% average, can we get candy bars?
He already owes the first period.
Ooh. Brennan wants to know what we. What?
Does he still owe your class?
Yeah, he was finding nachos.
I never told you guys you'd have nachos.
You said that we could have nachos. That one day we could have nachos.
Wake up, shower.
Let's set a goal.
Yeah, dude. If we get above 70%, we get a pizza party.
Can we get like hamburgers or something? At like,
McNamara walks in.
We all go to El Patron.
El Patron.
22 chocolate blocks, bro.
Yes.
Brown
Let's set a class goal.
Yes.
Let's set a class goal. All right. I like this idea.
I like this idea too.
I like rotisserie.
If everybody wants my mates,
Can we get
then we
rotisserie?
get pizzas.
Yes.
No, I got better ideas. I'm trying to think of how we're going to do this. And I'm trying to think if we should do this with the camera rolling or not.
Put this on YouTube for the world.
How about we come up with a number, and if we got a class average higher than that number, I would go through and take your lowest grade so far and just mark that as thrown out.
How about give me a 10%?
Oh,
I'd rather have to.
bet.
Dude, wait, so
What do we have to do? Have that happen?
state your name and
We have to reach it.
The whole class. I can't count this.
This could be interesting.
Bro,
Yes, Natalie.
How do you recommend we study for this test? Because it's math.
We'll get back to that in just a second here. Alright, so let's think about that for a second. Okay, because we got a couple minutes. I like your question, Natalie. Yes, let's do this. Okay, so in RDS, there's a way I can take a low grade and I can just make it not for credit or something like that. And then it'll pop your average up a little bit. Now let's not go nuts, because you have a hell of a lot of grades in this class already. I mean, you have like 9 exit tickets and 9 homework sets, or 9 exit tickets and 8 homework sets or something.
Oh, speaking of exit tickets, don't forget to do yours today.
Yes, I'll get there in just a minute,
Extra
Ashton.
ticket today? Alright.
Yes, there is one today. It's kind of more stuff, but don't do it yet. What should we set for the, okay, folks got the class average was a 70 on the pop quiz.
Yeah,
So we should definitely aim to do better than the pop quiz on the real thing.
like a 75.
Yeah, but we also don't want to make the goal unobtainable. It sounds terrible.
72.
Alright. If the class average is a 75, I'll throw something out. And I don't mean like I'll throw out for every, I mean like as in I'll go through each person and throw your lowest thing out. Okay? So if you got that damn exit ticket that you only got
What if
25%
the lowest
on.
thing I have is my test?
Brandon,
Oh yeah, how's that?
Brandon, I've seen your grades. You got some low ones there, buddy.
That's not shade, that's a whole tree.
Alright, I'll throw one out if the class average is 70. If the class average is way higher than that, I'll be so happy I might accidentally throw 2 out.
Oh my gosh, I'm trying to teach.
This is documented
We
on the
exchange our
board.
throwout grade.
What the heck?
I'm sorry, what?
We exchange our throwout
Oh
grade.
my god.
I mean,
I
my
don't-
lowest.
I need something thrown out.
Oh,
I
Rose's
can buy my
one
own
is a
food.
beat. Not really.
I mean,
We'll see. Ashton.
If we get a 95 average or higher, can we reenact the Stanford prison experiment?
No,
Oh my god. Alright, moving on. But Natalie had a spectacular question that was how to prepare. I can't tell you enough about how good that practice test in the back of the chapter after page 86 is. And there's if the pages before it, like 82 to 85, are loaded with like 180 example questions that are just like the ones in the practice test. Okay? Once you've gone once through the practice test, all you gotta do is just go back and look at those other ones. There's lots more examples equally difficult in that example section. Whatever, review exercise, I think what it's called. Okay? There is no shortage of practice problems.
Equally difficult?
Equally difficult? Yeah, I think so. On the ones in the review exercises, I think they're equally difficult.
no easy ones is what he does.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, that would be a good way. I think that math is a lot like a language class. Okay? If this was a German class, the only way to prepare would be to practice, right?
9.
Okay. Ja, du musst üben. Yeah,
Was?
that's,
Ja, ich bin eine kleine Neigenwort.
oh my goodness. So, the only way to do it is to practice. I don't know that I think, especially the things that have a bunch of steps, like that thing about function inverses. Okay, there's like 6 little steps there. I really think that the only way to have that ready is to practice. Okay, I am going to try. I am going to try to do something different with the pop quiz than I've done with other stuff, like your exit tickets. I am going to try to get it set up so that it will either email you or share with you your answers next to the key. Does that make sense? So that you have, Ryan very diligently rocked every single question and knows exactly which ones he understood and which ones he didn't. But I'm not sure everybody's going to remember that by the time they're home and studying. Okay? It would be helpful, I think, to you to actually be able to look at your pop quiz and be like, oh, yeah, it was 7 and 8. I didn't get any of those right, and I didn't even know how to start on number 10. I just guessed. You know, whereas if you had like a little spreadsheet that showed like the question, your answer, and the right answer, or something like that, I'm going to try to get it so that it either emails you that or shares you with that, okay? In general, I'd like to be able to do that in general for like the exit tickets too and stuff like that. Finding some little... That's the beauty about Google spreadsheets. Is some other teachers already come up with these tricks, right? There'll be a trick. I just have to put your email addresses next to your answers and it'll send you little spreadsheets or something and it'll be fine. So watch for that because that will be helpful. We didn't take the pop quiz just to waste the first 20 minutes of class. We did it so that you knew what things you were needing most time on. Things like even and odd, which are not were a huge chunk of the test, but you want those points, we now know, because we took that thing. I don't remember what the question was that you guys only got 25% on, but whatever it was, that's a good thing to know.
It was green.
Yeah, it was that green thing, wasn't it? Yeah, I don't remember. All right. Happy. All right. I'll go ahead and stop the camera. I can't believe I agreed. If you guys get a class average of 75, the camera's been running. Ooh.
I did not sign anything.
Das ist eine Problem.
No upload.
That way, anybody who wants to watch the review can. It's because Brady couldn't be here today.
You're gonna post it on your website?
We're doing all I can
Not
say.
students.
It's going to be posted, the video? It's going to go to YouTube, and then I'll show you guys the link.
Post it on your website.
All right, I'm going to turn this off.
Not students.